Okay, session F of the free Advantage Play value betting training course is the last session. We've looked at what is value betting, bankroll management and variance, betting edges, what if you're restricted, and what is bookie bashing. So this last session, session F, is 3 videos. And we discussed the question, how long will this last? Which is a common question in any kind of either betting or even investment strategy. You know, if you look at house prices, there was a period of time where people simply advised go and buy houses and sit on them and they will increase in price year after year after year. Obviously, that is fine when interest rates are at an all-time low for years. But what happens when interest rates and inflation starts to climb and house prices don't tend to go up forever? What goes up comes down. There's maybe a gradual increase, but is it forever? What about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin? When there is a bullish run, as the crypto bros like to say, everybody gets wealthy, but there is a little bit of tragedy of the commons involved. There's a bit of searching for signal or patterns in noise and randomness. And is there anything there? I mean, my advice today on cryptocurrency is that it appears that a lot of them have a 50% chance of going up, a 50% chance of going down. You could disagree with me on that, and that's fine. I could be wrong, I could be right. No one really knows. And it's the same with professional betting, advantage play. One thing we can say, there is low-hanging fruit. Anybody is able to make a small amount of money from betting. Absolutely, you could teach your grandmother to do it. The longer it is to play the game, the harder it is to continue. And we divide this session into 3 videos. Firstly, we look at the low-hanging fruit. Secondly, about maximizing the longevity of getting on. And thirdly, about adapting and changing. So let's just have a look a little bit at the ABC of professional betting or advantage play or any kind of easy plus EV, return on investment in betting. So one of the worst marketing strategies that bookmakers can employ is a customer acquisition sign-up bonus that focuses on an event that is inevitable. I think Coral were maybe the worst offenders at this. They might say something like, any goal in the Premiership today will pay out at 3-1, maximum bet £10. So, of course, with 10 matches, an expectancy of maybe 2.7 goals in each match, there would be an average of 27 goals, or an expectancy of 27 goals, in the Premiership on that particular day. So the odds of there being 0 goals are quite simply ridiculous. In fact, we can work this out. Why don't we do this? I'm going to load up a Poisson calculator. So here is my Poisson calculator that I've loaded up. I'm going to put a mean of, say, 27 goals into here. And I'm going to have a target of over 0 goals. We see that the total odds are 1.00, which is 1-1. Actually, it's this because we just don't go to enough significant figures. I plugged it into Excel and found out that a goal in any of 10 matches where there are 2.7 goals on average per match expectancy is 1.00000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000 8, or in common parlance, odds of 532 billion to 1. So there's going to be a goal. I mean, maybe by the end of the universe, there might have been 10 Premiership games with expectancies of 2.7 goals per game where there isn't a goal, but there's going to be a goal. Okay? So what Coral are essentially saying here is, here's some free money. Here's a free £30. And it's very cheeky because it's nothing other than a, join us, bet with us, and we'll give you £30 worth of free bets. It's the same thing. I think in this situation, they don't I don't know how it works. Maybe they pay out in free bets or something like that. So what they're doing here is they're offering a marketing gimmick on something that is going to happen. Sometimes it's not as clear as a 532 billion to 1 sort of marketing ploy. Sometimes they might just say a goal in the game, which could be anywhere between 1 to 50 up to 1 to 5, depending on the expectancies of that particular game. But even so, it's something that very, very likely to happen. It's going to happen 80% to 99% of the time. So it doesn't take a genius to see that just blindly going and betting on that is going to be a profitable proposition. It's the same as you and me play heads and tails, but instead of even money, I'm going to give you 530 billion to 1 max stake, a billionth of a penny. You might not win every single time on the heads or tails, but you're going to be in profit in a very short period of time. Those kind of things are fine, but they're not long term in any way whatsoever. How many times can you go and bet on a sign up bonus? Technically only once per bookmaker, and even there are maybe ways around that, but those are logistical challenges that are for a different video. But that is an example of something on one side of the scale, one side of the coin of betting positive expectation bets. On the flip side of the coin would be something that is extremely thin, that can be done over and over again, and the bookmaker themselves don't particularly understand how you're profiting from them. Now, there are two different ways of the bookmaker can determine that you're profitable that is almost inescapable. One is beating the closing line. So essentially, you're now going to have to be, in effect, you're going to have to be beating the closing line yourself. The closing line is going to say X. You're going to have to have some sort of suggestion that that closing line is wrong in order to get away with that one. And the second one is being profitable, which we just cannot get away from. We talked about that in a previous video. Essentially, the easier something it is to do in betting, the harder it is to profit from long term. So let's have a look at that low-hanging fruit that's out there. I want to have a look at a graph that discusses effort, availability, and complexity versus reward. So on this graph, on our y-axis, we've got our return on investment, and on the x-axis, we have the difficulty that something is. And as we could probably guess, if something is quite easy to do, is quite simple, has high availability, and doesn't take a lot of effort. For example, our bet with Coral for any goal to be scored in the Premiership out of 10 games. That is not complicated to see that it is profitable. It's available in that if you don't have a Coral account, you can just sign up and get it. Takes almost no effort. You can just sit on your mobile phone, fill in the, even mobile phones these days, they'll just fill the forms out for you. So relatively, there is little effort. There is good availability for those that don't have Coral accounts, and it's not that complicated. And therefore, you're going to get your £5 free bet, your £10 free bet, your even a £30 worth of free bet. And that's fine. You can only do it once, though. So your return on investment isn't great. I mean, maybe £30 worth of free bets, which, considering they won't include the stake back in any bet that's placed, means that they're worth about 60 to 70% of their value. £15, £18 might be a lot of money to you. Certainly if you've got a mortgage to pay or you're a professional bettor, it's not that much money. Okay, maybe that analogy, the availability sits here, but the complexity and the effort sit down here. Now, as the availability becomes more difficult, and by that I mean as the availability becomes harder and harder to get hold of, the ROI starts to increase. Because, of course, the reason I said maybe the availability sat in the middle of the curve is you can only do this once at Coral. Once you've joined Coral, what are you going to do then? You're not going to find a bet of any goal in the Premiership at less than 1 to 530 billion then they've got to add a margin on top of that. Similarly, anything that becomes less available and less available has fewer eyes on it. And the fewer eyes that are on something that has positive expectation or as a good bet has higher ROI, and it's an exponential increase. If you're betting on something that nobody else has any vision of, that you've found yourself as a professional bettor. So an example of availability in betting and how the ROI can increase could be seen in the early 90s when John Carter and Paul Simmons pulled off what was known as the hole-in-one coup, where they found that holes-in-one in certain tournaments, that's the British and European and US Opens, the Volvo PGA and the Benson Hedges International, was odds on. They were making it about 1.76 by delving into some British newspaper library statistics, as you had to do in the pre-internet era. And they found out that you could get 10 to 1 at some bookmakers. Now, not the big ones, William Hill, Ladbrokes, Coral. They were all too well informed and too scared of high stakes to be able to profit from such an edge. But these guys bought an A to Z, and they found numerous bookmakers up and down the country who were independent and would offer not just singles but trebles, so they could compound their value. They were getting 1,300 to 1 on a 9 to 2 shot, essentially. They found Chichester-based gunning bookmakers who accepted a heap of doubles on the different events, and they went and cleaned up to the tune of about £500,000 up and down the country. The availability of these bets was very low. It was very difficult, but the ROI was very big. Similarly, with effort. Now, back in those days, as discussed, William Hill, Coral, Ladbrokes, those shops were up and down the country, but you weren't going to find good bets in them. Also, something like hole-in-one, they had to do the research in the National Statistics Library. And so the effort was large, and the complexity, actually working out this edge themselves, it was difficult. There are easy edges out there. There are easy bets, such as a goal in the Premiership across 10 games. They're not complex. They're available enough. The effort is very low. Maybe you've seen Sky Bet do the headline boost in the weekend. Salah to get a shot on target boosted from 1 to 10 to even money. Not complicated. Highly available. Very low effort. And that's why, in the long run, there's very low ROI on those types of boosts, those types of bets. Something like the coup that these lads came across was highly complex, had difficult availability, and a difficult amount of effort. And those are the kind of edges that we need to sustain ourselves as professional bettors. Quite simply, the best professional bettors do most of the work themselves. That doesn't mean that service providers can't help. Some of the easier service providers, such as the arbitrage services, the match betting services, they'll sit down here, right down at the bottom. Some of the more advanced services, we're talking about maybe winner odds, who have artificial intelligence about tennis players, bookie bashing ourselves, will sit in the middle, will have certainly higher ROI than some of the basic services, the arbitrage services, the match betting services. But we cannot possibly compete with those individualistic, highly efficient and intelligent teams that are out there themselves, simply because we're a community. Let's move on now and look at a second graph. And so, as opposed to the difficulty of effort, availability and complexity, we do have the ROI on the y-axis here, but now we have time on the x-axis. So the ROI on the y, time on the x. And what we will find these days, certainly post-1990s, even post-mid-2000s, now with the proliferation of exchanges, is that we all normally fall into a natural progression when going on a journey of professional betting. And that is, we will all be mostly exposed to online soft bookmakers right at the start of our journey. Why wouldn't we? Why would we ever look at a betting exchange or even a shop in 2023 when we have the proliferation of Bet365s on our phone, Sky Bets, William Hill. We will always start with online soft bookmakers. And most losers, of course, won't be in positive ROI. They'll be in negative ROI. And you would hope for them that they maintain a level negative ROI over time. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but hopefully the rate of losing doesn't get worse, despite the objective of the bookmakers to make that so. But if you are winning in any capacity whatsoever, and it doesn't really matter how, whether it is dutching, laying, arbitrage, free bets, concessions, beating the CLV, steam chasing, pricing stuff up ourselves, whatever it is, we will find that over time, the return on investment at soft bookmakers drops to zero because of restrictions that we've discussed previously. Sometimes this drop will happen sooner rather than later, depending on the profile that we're betting to and what we're betting on. But there is no magic bullet that will keep it going forever. The only magic bullet being finding a way of opening up more online soft bookmakers. But it's a never-ending merry-go-round, a merry-go-round that seems to be more challenging as time goes on. As we lose our ability to profit at the online soft bookmakers, I would say the overwhelming majority of professional bettors end their journey here. ROI starts to drop. Life isn't as good or as easy it was in the early doors, and we wave goodbye to them. Now, anyone that was on that journey will soon start to maybe think certainly about betting exchanges. They will be familiar that they're getting odds at the bookmaker, but those odds might be higher at the betting exchanges. And if they can become profitable at the betting exchanges, that can happen perhaps in a time period after they have lost the ability to bet at online soft bookmakers. But it will tail off very quickly because it is extremely hard. The best ROI is always to be had at soft bookmakers, the lowest at betting exchanges. Those that choose to go into sharp betting will also see that it is a logistical issue to solve in terms of how we go about sharp betting, about the fact that we have to bring in certain constructs and components into our PL figures, such as parking. You got most bookmakers up and down the country are on high streets, and if you're going to visit them twice a day at £1 a time, then that starts to add up. £2 a day, £60 a month. Doesn't sound like a lot until it starts being 720 quid a year. £720 a year out of betting winnings and petrol and tipping. Add together parking and petrol and tipping and take that out of the ROI, and there's a complexity, there is a problem there that needs to be solved. But if it can be solved, we certainly have the benefit, as discussed in previous videos, of being able to compound our bets into multiples, maybe even find those gems such as the hole-in-ones in the statistics. So having seen that online soft bookmakers can sort of fall off a cliff and betting exchanges and shop bookmakers ROI can start to increase, let's have a look at the low-hanging fruit that is available, the easy stuff. Before we get into the specifics of the low-hanging fruit and exactly what the edges are, just this category again, this categorization should be able to help summarize what we've been talking about. And that is that high-hanging fruit is something we work out ourselves, user discovery bets that can be done long-term, a lot of effort, not much availability, and complex. The hole-in-one example. The sort of middle branches are either, if we work them out ourselves, but they're short-term, maybe high effort, maybe low effort, but definitely easy to work out even if there's low availability. Or perhaps we get them from a service provider. We're given the bet, like a tipster. And they are long-term, and they are low effort as a result of being service provider. And they are highly available, but they're pretty complex. These sit in the middle of the tree. The low-hanging fruit is the stuff that we get, really, from a service provider. Because if we get them from a service provider, others are as well. They're available just in the short term. It's not repeatable. The effort's low, but therefore the availability has to be low. It just naturally has to be, and it's very easy to work out. Let's check out some examples. Here I have some examples of different edges. Now, there are plenty more edges out there. The hole in one edge is very difficult to categorize. Essentially, it's, if you like, pricing markets up ourselves, which have just banded into an insanely difficult category here. I have the hard, I have the medium, the easy, and almost the too easy, the avoid. The stuff in black, it sort of sits outside of the frame of reference because whilst, as we discussed earlier with the Coral any goal in the Premiership across 10 games bet, whilst it is obviously a plus EV bet, in no way should we be considering it in our portfolio of professional betting and value betting. The only thing I would say actually is that being aware that it exists is certainly important, because whilst the bet itself isn't of much use to us due to availability, the fact that it exists may provide different opportunities elsewhere, such as in a biased market on the exchange. And so the bet itself isn't useful, but awareness of the bet is useful. Anyway, in this table I discuss betting edges, the effort, the road from too easy to insane. In too easy, so easy, there should be avoids. We categorize anything to do with arbing and dutching, because if you're arbing and dutching, unfortunately, there's not going to be much longevity under which the platform you are arbing and dutching, and it's certainly just not advised. Anything to do with free bets. Free bets are quite simply something that is promoted in the match betting community to identify, target, and then lay off for guaranteed profit. And for that reason, we want to disassociate ourselves with that group of people. Low liability boosted odds, going back to Salah to score first or to get a shot on target at Sky Bet, boosted from 1 to 10 to even money. Maximum bet £10. What are we going to do with that tenner? You know, there's £9 equity in that, but what are we going to do with it? It's not enough to keep us attracted. And sign-up bonuses, it's too high risk and too difficult in terms of availability to target those. All of these in the top row are plus EV activities. You could argue that there is value and you are undertaking advantage play through undertaking these activities, and it's a fair enough argument. It's just they sit outside of the conversation because they are not long-term. They're extremely short-term, and they're too popular. The tragedy of the commons has shown that too many people are doing this for us to want to be involved in any of these. In fact, we want to actively avoid and have a profile that looks like we are not any of these people. So now we move on to easy. Now, easy betting edges, horse each way, lucky 15s. Each way betting provides opportunities, and there's no better opportunity than in horse racing, where price fluctuations can go very quickly, and compositions of race can suggest that a horse to finish second, third, fourth, to finish in the places is not a direct linear relationship to the win price, and yet that's exactly what we get from the bookmaker. And we can identify 10s, 20s, maybe 50, 60, 70 different opportunities in a single day. If we can do this, we can put these bets into lucky 15s online, and there are people out there. They used to, one technique, it was very easy, was simply to go over to Odds Checker and look at anything that is being cut and anything that is top price and put them into horse lucky 15s. Nowadays, you have services such as, well, the Bookie bashing horse racing tracker, where we can take out arbitrage, we can take out even anything identified against the exchange on the place where we price it up ourselves, and identify it by bookmaker and just place lucky 15 after lucky 15. The reason this is easy is it takes away a lot of the thought process. We can just go and select the horses, and unlike something like golf, you know, horse racing, in golf there could be 2 events a week. In horse racing, there's 2 in 10 minutes. So the volume just gets us through. It really is the easiest way to profit. And through placing lucky 15s, I mean, a lot of them can be like a high-value lottery ticket. We've had multiple people with 6-figure wins at Bookie bashing, 400,000, 800,000 pound payout. Me, myself, I haven't hit the 6-figure, but I have been one horse in the last race who finished second multiple times from £250,000. It's going to happen one day. They are a very easy way with low effort of undertaking advantage play and value betting. Golf betting is also quite a good one, as long as maybe Jon Rahm doesn't win every single tournament when he's the favourite, because there's very little to no value generally on the favourites. But golf betting with tipsters, it's quite easy. I'm not going to name names, but I'm aware somebody has a system that they refer to as the 15-minute system, because it just takes 15 minutes a week. And golf betting is an easy way to profit. And if you can find someone to give you the value, there's enough of them out there. Any boosts that have high limits, what I'm talking about here is that maybe you can get £100 down on a boost, which you can do in Betfred's daily specials. They're not all good, but identifying which ones are good and which ones are not good can help us profit. And generally, we're looking away from Betfair Exchange for two reasons. One, if the market isn't on Betfair Exchange, it's a lot harder for the majority to work out if it is good or not. And secondly, even if it is on Betfair Exchange, because the boosts have high limits at Betfred, we might find that the exchange market is biased, and so it doesn't give us really any information. For example, Manchester United to win to both teams to score could be fair odds 4.2, could be boosted to 5.0 at Betfred, and therefore it's 4.9 on the exchange, because there is an imbalance of layers on that particular market holding the price up. An early payout, there's 2-up concession at Bet365, Sky Bet, Paddy Power, where if a team goes 2-up and then doesn't win, you still get paid. You get paid at the minute that they go 2-up. And just placing singles on those. A lot of people are able to actually overstake by hedging their bets on those bets. And they're very easy to do. And if you just want to stick to the easy stuff, you will make enough money. But the transition from easy to medium, there is way more money out there, way more money on the early payout multis than there is in the singles, triggering also additional concessions such as 20% extra on your 6-fold, 15% on your 5-fold, things like this that on top of the 2-up concession, the EV can go crazy. And there are people making a good money simply out of placing multiples on the early payout concession. The shop virtual doubles, they can be 140%, 150% EV, but the odds are up at 20 to 1, 30 to 1. You can only play singles on them. I mean, they are doubles, but the doubles means it's two different virtual reality cartoon horses to win. Can you sustain the variance involved with that magnitude of odds? Shop double the light, hat trick, heaven. It's a medium effort because you've got to make the effort to actually get to the shop and the logistics that creates. But it's very high value. And it's very good ROI. And finally, seeding boosted markets on the exchange, such as Salah to get a shot on target, 1 to 10. Up to evens at Sky Bet. Well, you've got to know what the fair odds of that are without the exchange, because that's the biased market that you're trying to exploit. We move into hard. Okay, you were doing horse each way, lucky 15s online. They were easy. You got restricted anywhere. If you can move to shops, though, then the long-term viability of these payouts extends into the horizon. It suddenly becomes years instead of months. Exchange value betting, steam chasing, shop coupons. Again, these are long-term, high-value activities that are not easy, that are a lot less easy than arbing and dutching and free bet and low free bets. But because they're much harder, because the effort is greater, the availability is more difficult, and they are much more complex to understand, that means that the ROI is significantly higher, and the longevity is as well. And finally, we get to insane. Things like combo bets, which are low ROI, high volume, thin edge. Things like pricing markets up ourselves, like the hole-in-one edge. These are people that have full confidence in their abilities, but it's one of those funny aspects of value betting. You can have full confidence in what you're doing, but that doesn't mean that the bet will win. Good bets can win, but good bets can also lose. Bad bets can win. That sounds counterintuitive or too simple, but let me give you the example of the William Hill Great Sports Offers. These were 25 offers that were available in shop all day, every day. They weren't really offers. They were just obscure bets, such as New York to have 2 corners in each half and a card and 3 corners for the opposition and maybe a goal. Something, a combination like that. And 23, 24 of them would be bad every day, and 1 or 2 would be great. Sometimes 130, 140, 150%. And they went on for a while. Now, we were finding great EV bets, and William Hill ended up stopping them. But I believe that they ended up stopping them not because we were finding great EV bets, because William Hill themselves didn't know how great the EV was. They were winning. There was no reason they had to win. There's no correlation between something winning and losing and the EV. And so just because you priced something up and you found a fantastic edge, you don't need to get lucky when you're betting on thousands of bets. But if the edge is so big, you're only going to get a few bets on, such as the hole-in-one edge, then you also need the bets to win, and Lady Luck needs to roll the dice in your favour. So, as discussed in this video, the low-hanging fruit is out there for really anyone to get their hands on. And even if we avoid the very low-hanging fruit that are in the black up here, the easy stuff, anyone really, I could teach my grandmother how to profit on horse each way, lucky 15s on her Bet365 account that really provide loss-leading odds for most of the horses anyway. As we progress up the effort scale and things get harder, that is where both ROI can grow in some circumstances, but also more importantly, the longevity of our professional betting and value betting career starts to extend. In the next video, I am going to take a look at maximizing the longevity of getting on.